Ariana, nice to meet you.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I spoke to you about Force 2 years ago for season two. So when
Amazing
that
show. Another
was,
amazing
yes,
show.
yes, yes. You are like on every show. I'm like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Like every time I'm in the credits, I'm like, it's him, it's him. How do you keep all of your projects organized that like when you like are thinking of something or hear a show, how do you keep it organized and keep
You,
it in mind?
everybody's got their own flavor. You know what I mean? Like I could have two shows in Chicago. Like I have Force and I have the Shy. They don't sound nothing alike.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So everybody's got their own lane. Once you read the script and you understand who the characters are, it kind of tells you like that person's listening to this and that person will be vibing to that. You know what I mean? So the characters kind of tell you which way the music should go. So it's been easy because I could have five shows in Chicago. They're not going to sound the same as long as the characters aren't the same. You know what I mean? So it's been easy that way. And just really having a good, strong grasp of what the differences are in music. You know, techno to house, go-go music, hip-hop music in Atlanta versus hip-hop music in New York, RLA, our Miami bass, our the drill music that they're doing in Chicago, or with the music in Louisiana. Like everybody's got their own flavor. So, and then within those cultures and those flavors are sub flavors and cultures. So, just really honing in on those things. So it's been good.
Yes. Speaking of BMF, they're in so many different locations. For example, what is the sound of Detroit in 1995?
So Detroit is like jit slash like it was like a fast hip hop like Technicolor and things like that. Like they had their own sound. It was like up tempo and moving. Um and that's like a Detroit sound. And like but they had like their own sort of techno. It was dope. It was dope. It was like house meets Europe. You know what I mean? And so like they got their own vibe. So it was dope to like have that in there. You know what I mean?
Yes. But then when they're in St. Louis, what makes you think of St. Louis in 95?
Man, St. Louis, I mean, it's hard to talk about St. Louis and never bring up Nelly. You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? Like, but they got a more soulful sound.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So we went with more soulful tunes and songs that were a little bit more simplistic in its development because it wasn't like chopped up samples. They weren't really sampling as far as their hip hop goes back then. So we were really focused on just doing things that sounded like uh, St. Louis in the early '90s and the late '90s and the mid '90s. So we just copied that sound when we didn't license records from that time, and tried to make songs that sound use the slang from there, use artists from that out that way that had that dialect and that draw because everybody sounds different too. Um, and gave those guys opportunities to get records on these shows. So that's what we did.
Yeah. And then of course there's Atlanta, and then they mentioned the 1995 Source Awards, which was a huge turning
Turning
point
point.
for Atlanta.
Listen, that that Source Awards is the most legendary Source Awards ever because you had New York who was winning, you know, you had the West Coast who was, if not winning, they were like right there, like they were coming. You know what I mean? With the Death Row thing. And then here all of a sudden you got this one little group, you know what I mean? And they're nominated for everything and they get new artist of the year. And Andre is like, listen, we coming. So pay attention. And he wasn't bullshitting because Atlanta said into the hemispheres, and we're still essentially like in Atlanta,
Yeah.
like right now today. Like a lot of our biggest from Little Baby on down, they rep Atlanta. You know what I mean? So Atlanta's still right now today got that fire. So when he said we coming, he meant that
Do
for
you remember
real.
that award show?
Hell yeah, because it was crazy because Suge got up on stage, and I don't look like Suge. I just want to say that for the 15,000th time. I need y'all to stop it. But Suge got on stage and was shooting, like Puff was catching strays, you know what I'm saying? And then Puff got up there and did his thing. It was like, yo, this is crazy. And Snoop and then went up there and Snoop was like, y'all don't love Dr. Dre. Like it was just chaos. You know what I mean? And then they were booing. You're booing Outkast. Like they were booing people. Who boos people? You know what I'm saying? So it was just it was just a whole different vibe. But I loved it. I ain't gonna hold you. I thought that was my favorite Source Awards. They need to bring it back.
We also go international to Mexico. What was it like to kind of create that sound? Because it's also very tense in Mexico while they're there.
So you giving up some jewels right now. See, I didn't know we could talk about that. You know what I'm saying? But basically just authentic. You know what I'm saying? Like we really wanted the bands to sound like the bands, the harmonicas, and just all the instrumentation they use to make that music. We wanted it to really be authentic. So we worked really hard and tirelessly on finding music that depicted the sound of Mexico in 1992, 1993, and really just focused in and making sure that, if people were down there at that time, this is what it sounded like, and they would think that it was authentic.
Yeah. What's interesting about working on BMF is that you've been going from the late 80s and now we're in the mid 90s. How would you say music during that time changed?
Well, if we're talking like on the urban side, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say like if you listen to like KRS-One's first album, like late 80s, you know what I'm saying? It was some drums and like a sound. Get it. By the time we got to the 90s, we were sampling like whole joints. Like it was like full productions and new drums and new this and new that. And with Dr. Dre and those guys had elevated and all these different guys were coming. And then Organized Confusion came in. Organized Noise came in and they're playing live instrumentation and it's just a whole other vibe. So the music had just grown so much as production style wise from the simplicity of the 80s, which was hard. Like it's like that. That's the way it is. It's just some drums and that's it. You know what I mean? No bass line, no pianos, no strings, no nothing. And where we ended up going was like fully produced records of, with keys and all these things. And, it's just the growth of about a 10-year time span is like night and day.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your personal favorite era of music?
90s. You know what I mean? Nah, for real. 90s R&B, 90s hip hop. Like we got guys like Jay-Z, we got guys like Biggie, Pac, dudes who are legends at their craft. Don't get me wrong, late 80s, Rakim is still in my top 10. Jadakiss and Fab and all those guys, but they're 90s, you know what I mean? Like it was that 90s era that it just speaks to me. Still, I listen to everything, trust me. I listen to everything because you can't be the old guy listening to different music when so many things are coming. So I gotta know what's hot every 10 years. I gotta know what's hot from 2025 to 2015, from 2015 to 205, from 205 to 95, from 95 to 85, and all the way down. And different genres. You know what I mean? Different, whether it be pop, whether it be rock, whether it be, classic, whether it be jazz, whatever it is, I gotta know who was hot at that time and and get a hold of that music and get that out there for the people. So yeah, it's been fun though.
What's also I feel like would be a lot of fun is that Charles has completely different taste in music. What has it been like kind of curating his gospel sound during this time period as well?
You know what's crazy? So he plays the steel guitar, right? He's sitting down plucking on this thing. The steel guitar is a very unique instrument. It's got its own sound, the way it bends, like it does so many weird things that, being able to create for him, listening to the songs that he was listening to, that was like an experience in itself because I can't think of that. I don't think in the songs I've ever produced or listened to, I've heard a lot of steel guitar. Mm-hmm. So just really being able to delve into what he's listening to, that genre and really learn it and love it, so that we give him, some music that he can sing and go forward from there. So it's been great, just learning.
Yeah. What has it been like delving into the history of BMF and music? Because even though they only had one artist, they definitely were within the music industry and influencing the music industry during that time as well. The late 90s, the mid to late 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking to somebody earlier about just being down there, like going down to Atlanta for the first time and seeing them damn posters everywhere. And, BMF was like, what the hell is this type of thing? And, then you find out, you go out to a club and you see a million dudes and you're like, oh, that's BMF, and to hear rappers right now today still mention those guys and, what they were bringing to the culture. And like, shout out to Big Meech, because what Big Meech was doing was literally the same way he was running his narcotics industry organization. That's the best way to say drug dealer. But he was trying to be really fair. So what Meech was trying to do was he would believe in an artist. He put a lot of money into that artist. He invested in that artist, and he was trying his hardest to get that artist out there. But he was doing fair deals, and he believed in the people. So we get to show that this year on season 4, which airs June 6th. But we get to show a piece of that. So I'm so happy and grateful that we get to do that this year and bring like old Atlanta sound back a little bit. So I'm looking forward to our fan base listening to it and loving it.
Yes, awesome. Well, it was amazing talking to you again. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. You're always
Hopefully,
busy. Yes. So thanks for
hey,
making the
that's a
time to
good
talk
thing.
to me. I'll always see you in the credit stuff.
I appreciate it.